I never imagined a single weekend could twist the foundation of a 10-year marriage so violently that even breathing felt like betrayal. It all began the night my wife returned from a wedding, her best friend's wedding, the one she'd been preparing for months. The night she came home, something in her eyes was different, something that made my skin prickle even before she spoke a word. At that time, I didn't introduce myself to anyone in this story, because I didn't yet understand I need distance from myself to keep my heart steady. But soon you'll know who I am, once I find the courage to say it. The wedding had taken place 2 hours away in a town by the coast. She'd left early in the morning, wearing a navy dress she'd bought after 5 days of indecision. I remember watching her from the doorway. She looked beautiful, hair falling in soft waves, perfume familiar but still exciting. We'd had some small arguments the week before about bills, schedules, pointless things that come from long-term comfort, but that morning she kissed my cheek and said, "Promise you'll miss me a little." I laughed. I didn't know that sentence would replay in my mind later like a cruel joke. She came home close to midnight. But what stuck with me wasn't the time. It was the way she stepped inside, slow, deliberate, as if her limbs were suddenly heavier than the rest of her body. She didn't smell like alcohol. She didn't look tired. She looked terrified. "Are you okay?" I asked. She didn't answer. She just placed her clutch on the table, took a breath like she was preparing to dive underwater, and said, "We need to talk tomorrow morning. I need to sleep." Sleep? She'd never postponed a serious conversation in her life. If something upset her, she'd spill it right there in the hallway, shoes still on. But that night, she went straight to our bedroom without even looking back at me. I spent the night awake on the couch in the living room, staring at the ceiling fan as it sliced the darkness over and over again. Morning arrived, but the dread that had settled in my chest was already far ahead of it. She came out of the bedroom slowly, wearing sweatpants and a hoodie, clothes she only wore when she was sick or deeply stressed. Her hands trembled as she held a mug of tea. "I went to the doctor before the wedding," she said. "I wasn't feeling well last week. I felt cold." "Okay, what did they say?" She looked at me as if expecting me to break before she did. "The results came in yesterday. They emailed me the report." She opened her phone, turned it toward me, and my world cracked open. A diagnosis. A very specific one. A very unmistakable one. A diagnosis you don't just get from being unlucky. A diagnosis that tied her body to someone else's body through intimacy. I stared at the screen. My thoughts blurred. My tongue felt too heavy to speak. The room felt too silent to exist. And then I finally managed to whisper, "Who?" She didn't answer. "Who?" I repeated, louder, sharper. And still, nothing. Silence isn't always empty. Sometimes it is full of guilt, so loud it becomes a scream without sound. It was only after nearly a full minute that she whispered the name, Ethan, a man I'd met twice. A man married to a woman named Claire. A man I had shaken hands with at a barbecue 6 months earlier, never noticing the invisible threads forming between him and my wife. She didn't give excuses. She didn't tell a long story. She didn't cry. She only said, "It happened. I'm sorry." As if that sentence could glue together the pieces of something she had shattered. That morning, I walked out of the house. I didn't slam the door. I didn't yell. I simply walked because movement was the only thing stopping me from collapsing. I walked until I reached the small park 3 blocks away, sat on a bench near a fountain, and listened to the water spill over the stones in an endless cycle that felt like mockery. It was there, sitting alone in the mid-morning sunlight, that I finally spoke my own name out loud, as if reminding myself I still existed. "My name is Nathan," I whispered, and saying it, really saying it, felt like reclaiming something she had stolen without even noticing. I spent nearly 2 hours in that park, piecing together the past year like a crime scene. The late-night texts she never explained. The sudden gym membership she never used but kept paying for. The time she claimed she needed air and went on long drives. Every moment I had dismissed as normal suddenly glowed like neon signs. When I finally returned home, she was sitting at the dining table with her hands folded tightly together. She looked up at me with eyes begging for something. Forgiveness, maybe? Understanding? A softness I no longer had inside me. Are you angry? She whispered. I think I'm beyond anger, I said. Her chin trembled. We can fix this. Fix? I repeated, stunned. Fix what? The marriage? The lie? Or the fact that someone else has touched you in a way I thought was mine alone? She closed her eyes, and tears slid down her cheeks silently. That silence again. Heavy, suffocating. Hours later, after the shock settled into a colder, harder shape inside me, I made a decision. Not out of revenge, not out of spite, but out of a deeply rooted belief that truth doesn't belong hidden. If you bury it long enough, it rots everything around it. I reached for her phone. What are you doing? She asked. I'm sending the report, I said, to the only other person who deserves the truth. Her eyes widened. Nathan, please don't. I didn't listen. I forwarded the medical report to Claire, her lover's wife, with a simple message. We need to talk. You deserve to see this. My wife tried to grab my arm, but I pulled away. You told me the truth late, I said. I won't do the same to her. The message delivered instantly. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again, and then her reply came. When can I come? We settled on 6 p.m. My wife broke down. She cried so loudly I could feel the echoes in my bones. She tried to convince me not to involve Claire, saying she was innocent, saying she didn't deserve this pain. But I couldn't understand how she could speak about innocence now. Not when she had taken mine, shredded it, and left it bleeding. At 5:50, I heard a car pull up. My wife walked around the house like a ghost, as if waiting for the world to collapse. And maybe it would, but this time I wouldn't be the one crushed beneath it. When I opened the door, Claire stood there holding her phone in one hand and her purse in the other. Her makeup was smeared, her hair messy, her eyes swollen. She stepped inside without a word. My wife stood behind me, trembling. Claire looked at her, then looked at me. Where is it? She asked, her voice steadier than I expected. I placed the printed report on the table. You sent it, she whispered, but I want to read it out loud. My wife gasped. Please don't. But Claire didn't even glance at her. She picked up the paper, unfolded it slowly, and began reading. Each word was like a knife slicing through the remaining thread of my marriage. Each sentence echoed through the living room with a brutal clarity that stripped away every lie. My wife broke down midway, falling on her knees, sobbing into her hands. But Claire kept reading, her voice shaking but unwavering. And I stood there, feeling each word like a punch to the chest, but also feeling a bitter, hollow sense of justice. When she finished, she placed the papers on the table with trembling fingers. For 3 years, she whispered to my wife, I trusted him. And you? My wife looked up at her. I never meant to. Stop. Claire's voice cracked like glass. You meant enough to hide it. You meant enough to hurt both of us. Then she turned to me. I'm sorry, she said. I shook my head. You didn't do this. No, she whispered. But now we both live in the aftermath. She left without another word. The house felt quiet again, too quiet. Like the moment after a bomb has gone off, when dust still hangs in the air and the world feels wrong. My wife crawled toward me, clutching my leg like a drowning person desperate for air. Please don't leave me, Nathan, she begged. Please. I am scared. I am sorry. I don't want to lose everything. I didn't touch her. Not because I hated her. Not because I wanted to hurt her. But because something inside me had shattered in a way I wasn't sure could be repaired. I walked to the guest room that night, closed the door gently, sat on the bed, and stared at the wall until dawn began to color the sky. And I realized something painfully simple. This story wasn't about the diagnosis. It wasn't about the cheating. It was about the moment a truth becomes too big to fit in the dark anymore. And now that it was exposed, nothing would ever be the same. I didn't sleep that night. I don't think my mind even allowed the possibility of rest. I just sat there on the bed in the guest room, feeling the weight of everything I'd heard, everything I'd seen, everything I'd lost in a matter of hours. When the light finally crept in through the blind around 6 in the morning, it brought no warmth, just clarity. A cold, unwelcome clarity. I stepped out into the hall, and the house felt foreign, like I was walking through a place that resembled my home, but was no longer mine. My wife was curled up on the living room couch, an untouched blanket thrown over her legs. She must have cried herself to sleep. Her face was swollen, eyes red and heavy, breath shallow. A part of me, the part that once loved her without question, ached at the sight. But another part, sharper and far more wounded, whispered that sympathy wasn't the same as forgiveness. She stirred when she heard me walking. She sat up quickly, as if afraid I'd disappear if she blinked too slowly. "Nathan, please, can we talk?" Her voice was hoarse, raw. I didn't sit. I didn't even lean against anything. "I don't know what to say to you yet." She looked at me like I'd struck her. I know you're hurting. I can't undo what I did. I wish I could. But please, let me explain." "Explain?" I cut in. "Explain what? That you cheated? That you hid it? That you put both of us at risk? That you let another woman read your medical report out loud because you didn't have the courage to be honest with her yourself?" She flinched like each word was a slap. "Nathan, I swear to you, I didn't mean for anything to happen. It wasn't something I planned. Affairs don't just fall from the sky," I said. "There's a series of choices. You made those choices." She covered her face with her hands. Her shoulders shook. I know, and I'm ashamed. I'm sorry." I watched her silently for a moment. I didn't feel triumph. I didn't feel comfort. Only exhaustion. A deep, bone-heavy exhaustion. "Did you love him?" I asked. Her head shot up. "No. God, no. It wasn't that." "Then what was it?" She hesitated for a long time before whispering, "I was lonely." The absurdity of that answer made my jaw tighten. Lonely? While married? While living in this house with me? While sharing a life with me? That kind of loneliness is a choice, too. "I didn't mean it like that," she cried. I felt unnoticed. I felt like we were drifting, and he made me feel seen. I exhaled slowly. "And you didn't think to tell me? To talk to me? To fix it with me instead of him?" I was scared. Her voice cracked. "I thought if I told you I felt neglected, you'd think I didn't love you anymore. And instead, you thought cheating would protect our marriage." She had no answer. I walked past her and into the kitchen, needing space before the walls closed in. She followed me, standing a few feet away like she was afraid I might turn around and shout. But I didn't shout. I just poured a glass of water and leaned on the counter, trying to remember who I had been before all this, before the truth turned me into someone I didn't recognize. "I'm going to get tested today," I said flatly. "First thing." She nodded quickly. "I'll come with you." "No," I said. "I'm going alone." She swallowed. "Okay, I understand." I could feel her staring at my back, her silence carrying a strange mixture of guilt, longing, and fear. But I didn't turn around. I grabbed my jacket and walked out the door without looking back. The world outside looked painfully normal. Neighbors jogging, cars leaving for work, birds perched on telephone wires. But everything around me felt disconnected, like I was observing life from behind a pane of glass. The clinic was nearly empty when I arrived. I filled out forms mechanically, answered questions without processing them, sat through the blood draw like a mannequin. The nurse was kind, too kind. I hated it. Kindness made the whole situation feel more real, more tragic. "You'll get your results soon," she said softly. "Whatever happens, you'll be okay." I didn't know whether to laugh or break down. Instead, I just nodded. When I came out of the clinic, I didn't want to go home. I drove aimlessly for over an hour, ending up in a quiet parking lot near a lake at the edge of town. I watched the water move. I watched the wind ripple across it. I watched people living their lives without knowing mine had fallen apart. At some point, my phone vibrated. Not a call. A message. It was from Claire. "How are you holding up?" I stared at the screen for a long moment before typing back, trying to make sense of everything. Her reply came quickly. "Same. Can we meet? Just to talk. I think it might help both of us." I hesitated. Not because I didn't want to talk, but because I didn't want anything to make the situation messy. Still, Claire was the only other person who understood the depth of this particular betrayal. After a moment, I wrote, "Where?" We met at a small cafe downtown. She sat outside at a corner table, her hands wrapped around a coffee cup, even though it was warm outside. When she looked up and saw me, her expression softened, not with pity, but with recognition. The kind only someone wounded in the same way can offer. "Nathan," she said quietly. "Claire." She exhaled shakily. I'm so unbelievably sorry. You don't need to apologize, I said. You didn't do anything wrong. She looked down. I keep thinking, how could he do this to us? How could either of them do this to people who trusted them completely? I didn't have an answer. Maybe there wasn't one. We talked for nearly 2 hours. Not about revenge. Not about anger. Just pain. Shared pain. Raw, unfiltered, and strangely grounding. She told me she had confronted Ethan when she left my house the night before. He admitted everything. He tried to justify it. He begged her to stay. I left, she said. I don't know if I'll go back. I nodded slowly. I don't know what I'm going to do either. She studied me for a long moment. But you still love your wife, don't you? The question hit hard. Yes, I admitted. But love doesn't fix betrayal. And betrayal doesn't erase love. They just sit there together, choking each other. Claire looked like she might cry again. Before we parted, she put a gentle hand on my arm. Whatever you decide, you're not alone. I thanked her and left, feeling heavier but also clearer. The truth had wounded both of us, but at least neither of us was drowning alone. When I got home, my wife was sitting on the stairs, waiting like a child waiting for punishment. She stood up quickly when she saw me. How did it go? She whispered. I'll get results soon. She nodded, wiping her cheeks. Can I make you something to eat? No, I said gently but firmly. I'm not hungry. She lowered her gaze. Nathan, please tell me what you're thinking. Please talk to me. I don't know what I'm thinking, I said. Every time I look at you, I see both the person I loved and the person who broke me. She stepped closer but didn't touch me. Tell me what I can do to fix this. You can't undo what happened. But I can try, she whispered desperately. Give me a chance. I walked past her and sat on the sofa, burying my face in my hands. She sat on the carpet at my feet, like she wanted to stay close, but didn't dare sit beside me. I want to earn your forgiveness, she said softly. Even if it takes years. Even if it takes the rest of my life. Her voice trembled with sincerity, but sincerity after betrayal feels like a bandage placed on a knife wound still open and bleeding. Days passed. Slow, heavy, full of awkward silences and broken glances. She tried everything, cooking, apologizing, offering space, begging for chances. I tried everything too, distance, conversation, quiet reflection, but nothing made the pain fade. Then my results arrived. Negative. A wave of relief washed through me, so powerfully I had to sit down. But the relief didn't change the reality of what she'd done. It only meant I wasn't tied to Ethan's choices the way she was. When I told her the results, she started sobbing uncontrollably, sinking to the floor like her legs had given out. Thank God, she cried. Thank God. I was so scared. Nathan, I'm so sorry for everything. Please, please don't leave. I didn't answer right away. I sat next to her on the floor. She reached for my hand, and after several long seconds, I let her hold it. Not because everything was fixed, not because I had forgiven her, but because healing had to start somewhere. I don't know where we go from here, I said quietly. But leaving today won't solve anything. Staying won't solve anything either. We need time. She nodded against my shoulder, crying softly. I'll wait, she whispered. As long as you need. I'll wait. And for the first time since the truth erupted, I didn't pull my hand away. I don't know what our future looks like. I don't know if we will rebuild or crumble. I don't know if trust can ever grow again in the same soil where betrayal grew first. But I know one thing. The truth may break people, but also frees them. And now, I'm free to choose my next step with open eyes. If you want more stories like this, don't forget to like, follow, and share. Tell me, where are you watching from? In comment box.